Alright, what is up guys, NA4 here and welcome back to a different kind of video today. This one is a personal project, I spent a good amount of time editing this video and hopefully you guys like it, alright? If you saw the thumbnail, you saw the title, you know what we're doing here today, so I won't beat around the bush too much, but I'll be letting you guys know my top 10 favorite albums of all time, alright? And it can't be an incorrect list because it's my personal list, it's my personal preference, it can't be wrong, okay? But everyone's different, everyone has their own taste. So in the comment section below, let me know, do we have similar taste? Or let me know your personal top 10 list. Or you can also tell me like, hey man, you put me onto this album. This was a great pick. I'm gonna be listening to this. And also if you like this kind of stuff, let me know, we can do more of it. Drop a like on the video, share the video, subscribe if you haven't already. I would appreciate it, and it's free. But yeah, let's hop straight into it. Beautiful Soul, Jesse McCartney. Now, before guys like Justin Bieber and Shawn Mendes, we had one guy, all right, the early 2000s heartthrob. His name was Jesse McCartney, all right? And if you grew up watching Disney Channel, you know who this is. If you were listening to Radio Disney, you know who this guy is, all right? The guys wanted to be him, and the girls wanted to be with him, okay? This guy was a threat back then. And unfortunately, his career didn't really take off like it should have, but this album alone, it does enough for me that it makes my top 10 list. It's classic, man. I like the album cover. This song, beat for beat, hit for hit, it has lots of good songs on it. And if you haven't listened to it before, I would highly recommend it. You might be thinking, oh man, it's like a Disney album, but it's really not, man. It really stands on its own 2 feet, and I really enjoy it. So, like I said, it might not be for everybody, but I think it's a really, really good album. And if you haven't listened to it before, I would highly recommend it. Beautiful Soul is probably his biggest song, and it's, in my opinion, his best work, his best album. And when you got that on top of, She's No You, Get Your Shine On, things like that, you can't go wrong. So Jesse McCartney does enough to make my list. Justin Timberlake, Justified. Now, this was the debut album for Justin Timberlake, with NSYNC on hiatus and, him and Britney Spears going through like a public breakup. This album was his big break, and he succeeded, okay? This album is a banger, it's iconic, it's a classic. I love this one a lot. And for me, it was going to be between this album, Justified, or the 2020 Experience. I love both of those, but I think in terms of consistency, I have to give it to this one. I think it edges it just slightly for me. And this album was just produced by just so many brilliant names in the music industry. And I believe this album was actually intended for Michael Jackson, but he turned it down. So I'm not too sure what the reasoning for that was, but I think Justin Timberlake does really, really well on this album. And it has so many hits on it. It was pretty successful when it came out back in 2002. So if you haven't listened to it, I would highly recommend it. It's a great album, just really brilliant producing as well. Michael Jackson, Bad. Now, regardless of the allegations and the controversy behind Michael, you got to give him credit, okay? Dude is literally an icon. You do not get the name King of Pop for nothing. So I feel like if I'm making a top 10 artist list or a top 10 albums list, I have to put Michael Jackson on there at least somewhere. He at least has to scratch the surface, So whether it's Off the Wall, Thriller, Bad, etc., he has to at least make the list. It's a respect thing. There's not many artists who can literally just stand on stage and make people pass out. Not even sing, not even do a single dance move, just stand there and pass out. Crazy. Katy Perry, Teenage Dream. Now look, this album still stands the test of time. Still heavily regarded till this day. Is one of the greatest albums of all time. Okay, this one right here means a lot to me. Because Katy Perry, back in like 2010, around that era, I was locked in, dude. I thought she was just the most talented, most beautiful person on the freaking planet. And this album is it's one of my favorites, dude. I love it. Just so many bangers, so many hits. And she's put out plenty of good albums. And I know she's currently in the midst of making her comeback with Woman's World or whatever it's called. At least by the time this is being recorded, it's not really that great, but that's why we have this, okay? Teenage Dream is in my opinion, peak Katy Perry. It's the best work that she's put out, and it's just iconic, man. From the iconic music videos, the iconic album covers, it's just iconic, man. It just brings you back to your childhood, and it's just really well written. Everything about it is just pretty much perfect. Can't complain about anything about this album. Fergie, the Duchess. Now look, before Fergie started doing flips on the stage and before she became a viral meme for her very interesting take on the national anthem, Fergie was a threat, okay? Fergie was a big threat in the music industry. She was her, man. Let her cook, you know? She was really in her bag with this album. The Duchess is, in my opinion, Fergie's best album. I think most people will agree with that. It's prime Fergie. It's peak Fergie. The album, it's sexy, it's daring, it's confident. I like it. And I remember my mom and I, we would listen to this album all the time in the car. And keep in mind, I was a kid at the time, okay? So I didn't know the name of this artist. I didn't know the name of this album, but I knew once she pulled out that, CD that was covered in red with the woman on it, I knew we were just gonna have a blast of a car ride. And this album, it means a lot to me, man. Like I said, I think it's Fergie's best work. It's iconic, it's memorable. I love it so much. Olivia Rodrigo, Sour. Now, when I tell you, dude, in 2021, when she released this album, it was everywhere. That is an understatement, okay? When I tell you 2021 debut album, Olivia Rodrigo, this was definitely her year, okay? This album broke every record, left, right, and center. Still holds some of those records till this day. I believe it is still the most streamed album of all time on Spotify by the time this is being recorded. And it's just iconic, man. This album just has so many great, memorable hits. And she chose her singles just really, really, really well. You got songs like Driver's License, Deja Vu, Good For You. And the rest of the album is equally as good as those singles. And like I said, this album was just everywhere. She put her name on the scene so quickly and just so confident too, man. Like, this album is just very personal. It's very confident. It's just very, very good. And don't get me wrong, I love Sour and Guts about the same amount. I enjoy both albums, but I think just in terms of the impact that this one had, I have to give it to Sour. Charlie Puth, Voice Notes. Now, look, I love and adore this album so much. And although the critics were kind of hard on his first album, his sophomore album, Voice Notes, it just exceeded expectations and everyone loved it. I wish his team would have promoted the album more. I think that's why it didn't do as well as it should have. Because this album is just a masterpiece, man. Like, anyone who's listened to it knows exactly what I'm talking about. But please, do me a favor and do yourself a favor. If you haven't listened to this album in its entirety, please do so. Charlie Puth is probably the most underrated artist on the planet. It sucks because he has so many big hits like See You Again, How Long, Attention, We Don't Talk Anymore. So give this man his flowers. Please listen. Avril Lavigne, Let Go. Now, the year is 2002. You got this 17-year-old Canadian girl with an electric guitar and a dream, okay? And look, when I tell you this album is nothing shy of iconic and memorable, it would honestly be an understatement, okay? This, for me, is peak Avril Lavigne. This is the Avril I think of whenever I think of her. Just such an iconic and memorable album, man. It's just the aesthetic of her, the songs, the music videos. Like, it's just cool, man. You just like her personality so much. She's just like, I don't give a F about anybody. I'm just going to have fun and rock out. That's what this album establishes. And it's just such a well-written album, too, from beginning to end, from front to back. You feel her emotion. It's just such a fun album. You can just have a great time with it, dance to it. And like I said, it still stands the test of time, man. It's very memorable, and you can't go wrong with it, you know. The album was praised by many for how it was written, the choice of songs, everything. It still stands the test of time, And like I said, for me, Peak Avril, she has other great songs on different albums, but I think in terms of consistency and just a well-constructed album, I do think this is her best. And I know it's her debut album, nothing wrong with that. You know, she set the tone, it put her on the map, and you just can't go wrong with this one, man. I would highly recommend you listen to it in its entirety if you haven't, because I know you've at least heard one song off of this album. At least one. So listen to it in its entirety, please and thank you. Taylor Swift, Lover. Now, personally, for me, I've always been a Lover guy. Most people will probably say their favorite is maybe 1989, maybe Reputation, maybe Red, but I've always been a Lover fan. It's my personal favorite era, and I just love what it stands for. You know, I just love how Taylor really emphasizes, like, love has so many different layers. There's so many different variants of love, and you know, that might make me sound like a simp. That might make me sound, you know, very cliche, but I think if you listen to the album and you actually pay attention to the lyrics, you'll understand what she was going for, and I think she really succeeded in it. This album is just beginning to end, banger after banger after banger after banger, and you know, some people might consider Taylor to be overrated, and that's fine. Everyone's open to their own opinions, but I think if you actually took the time out of your day and actually, you know, gave her a fair chance, you would actually like it. But Lover, great album. I love the aesthetic of it. It's just so good, man. I love it so much. Sabrina Carpenter, Emails I Can't Send. Now, guys, please stop referring to Sabrina as a new artist. She has been putting out music since 2014, okay? By the time this is being recorded in 2024, that was 10 years ago. She's not a new artist. This girl literally has a handful of albums that some of you probably didn't even know existed. But anyways, I'm getting off track. Emails I Can't Send. I love this album. It means so much to me. I just think it's so well written. I think it's so personal. I love the aesthetic of it. And if I'm being honest, I know Short and Sweet just came out, but I still believe Emails I Can't Send is the superior album. And I know I still got to give Short and Sweet some time to settle in. It's still new, it's still fresh, and there's probably going to be a deluxe edition 9 times out of 10. But I think Emails I Can't Send is just so deep, man. These are some of like the most depressing lyrics I have ever heard in any album. And it'll just get you in your feels. You'll want to dance to it. You'll want to feel very sympathetic for Sabrina, because around this time she was going through a lot, man, with the whole Olivia Rodrigo and Joshua Bassett situation. She was going through it, man. So you feel for her. The world owed her an apology, and this album was great. It was very slept on at the time, but you know, I do think it's her best work. And if you haven't listened to the album in full, I would highly recommend it. Don't do it just for me, do it for yourself. I won't be able to sleep comfortably at night if I know that you did not listen to this album in its entirety. I think it's great from beginning to end. Every song has something special about it, and you will not be disappointed. So please listen to Emails I Can't Send. I think it's fantastic. I think it's a perfect album. But yeah, that's my list. All right, that's my list. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, this is just a personal preference. I'm not judging them based off of which one has the most sales, which one has broken the most records, just which ones I listen to the most often, that's all. But if you enjoyed it, you know what to do. Show some love, drop a like, share, subscribe if you're new. I'm NA4 and I am out. Peace.